The war had come and gone, leaving nothing but desolation in its wake. I found myself standing at the edge of what had once been a bustling town, but now it was nothing more than a ghostly remnant of its former self. The only signs of life were the whispering winds and the distant, mournful cries of birds. It was as if the very soul of the place had been extinguished, replaced by an eerie stillness that sent shivers down my spine. The buildings that had once housed families and businesses now stood as hollow shells, their windows shattered, their walls scarred by the violence of war. The streets, once teeming with the laughter of children and the chatter of townsfolk, were empty and overgrown with weeds. The remnants of a life that had once thrived here lay in ruins, a testament to the horrors of war. As I walked further into the heart of the ghost town, I couldn't help but imagine the lives that had once filled these streets. What had become of the families who had called this place home? Had they perished in the war, or had they fled, leaving their homes to the mercy of time and decay? I entered one of the abandoned buildings, the creaking door a stark reminder of the life that had once flowed through these walls. The interior was a mess of broken furniture, shattered glass, and debris. It was as if a tornado of destruction had swept through, leaving chaos in its wake. I couldn't help but feel a profound sadness for the people who had once lived here, for the lives that had been upended by the brutality of war. As I explored the building, I noticed a flickering light in one of the rooms. My heart raced, and I cautiously made my way towards it. The room was dimly lit by an old kerosene lantern, its feeble flame dancing in the still air. And there, in the corner of the room, I saw her. A young girl, no older than 10, sat on the floor, her tattered dress and long dark hair framing her delicate face. She was transparent, her form wavering as if she were a mirage. She looked up at me with wide, haunted eyes, her expression a mixture of sorrow and longing. "Who are you?" I whispered, my voice barely breaking the silence of the room. She didn't answer, but her gaze seemed to implore me, as if begging me to understand something beyond words. I took a step closer, my heart heavy with a sense of connection to this spectral presence. It was as if she were a lost soul, trapped in a world between the living and the dead. I reached out a trembling hand, hesitating before making contact with her cold, spectral fingers. She shivered at my touch, and a tear rolled down her pale cheek. It was a tear of pain and despair, a tear that spoke of the torment she had endured. In that moment, a flood of memories and emotions washed over me. I remembered her, a neighbor's daughter, a girl who had disappeared during the war, her fate unknown. The entire town had searched for her, but she was never found. Her disappearance had been a mystery that had haunted the town, a mystery that now stood before me in spectral form. As I sat down beside her, I listened to her story, the story of a young girl who had been torn from her family during the chaos of war. She had wandered the ghost town, unable to find her way home, trapped in a state of limbo between the worlds of the living and the dead. With every word she spoke, I felt her pain and her longing. I knew that I couldn't leave her in this torment, that I had to help her find peace. The war had taken so much from us all, and it was time to right a wrong, to give her the closure she so desperately needed. Over the following days, I delved into the town's history, seeking answers that would help me understand the circumstances of her disappearance. I spoke to the few remaining townsfolk, listened to their stories, and uncovered the truth that had been buried for so long. The war had brought not only physical destruction, but also a darkness that had tainted the town. It was a darkness that had given rise to malevolent forces, forces that had ensnared the lost souls of the war, like the girl I had encountered. Armed with this knowledge, I embarked on a journey to confront the malevolent entities that had taken hold of the town. It was a battle against unseen forces, a battle that would push the limits of my courage and resolve. With the girl's spirit as my guide, I faced the darkness head-on, determined to free her and the other lost souls from their torment. The battle was intense, a terrifying struggle against malevolent forces that sought to drag me into the abyss. But I was driven by a sense of duty and a deep empathy for the girl, and with her help, I managed to banish the darkness and release the trapped souls. As the malevolent presence receded, the town seemed to come back to life. The ghostly remnants of the past began to fade, and the town's buildings were no longer empty and abandoned. The people who had vanished during the war began to return, as if awakened from a long and troubled slumber. The ghost town was slowly being reclaimed by the living. The girl's spirit, having found the peace she had longed for, finally faded away, her eyes filled with gratitude. I like to think that she found solace in the knowledge that I had helped her, that I had brought closure to her painful existence. The war had left me scarred, both physically and emotionally, but it was the chilling encounter with the ghost town that had tested the boundaries of my understanding of the world. It was a different kind of war, a war against the darkness that lingers in the aftermath of conflict. And as I looked out at the now reviving town, I couldn't help but wonder if the true battle had always been within ourselves, a battle against the lingering ghosts of our past and the horrors that we had witnessed.